Florida Special Needs Trust, also often referred to as Supplemental Needs Trust, are trusts that can be set up so that an individual who may be receiving government benefits, something like Medicaid or Supplemental Security Income, is able to retain those benefits while putting money aside that can be used for them for certain reasons. There's generally two categories these types of trusts fall into. One would be called a third-party trust, where essentially another person is creating it for the person who has the disability and putting money into the trust to be held by a trustee, and the trustee can pay for things for the person with a disability throughout their lifetime. We see this most often with maybe a parent or a grandparent or a family member who wants to put money into a trust for a child or a grandchild, some kind of a relative, but they want to ensure that their relative does not lose their Medicaid or their SSI benefits. So by setting up this trust, a parent, grandparent, etc., can ensure that money is set aside and can be used to provide supplemental assistance for the person who is receiving benefits. There's certain parameters around these trusts, but the trustees can generally purchase things like caregiver services or medical things, or depending on the type of trust, all sorts of things, an apartment or pay for housing or even a car within certain parameters, as long as it's for the benefit of the beneficiary, and it will make it so that this beneficiary, again, can retain their benefits. An example of a third-party trust, too, would be like an ABLE account, where you can gift money into a certain specialized account that can be used for the person who's receiving benefits just for certain reasons. Now, the other type of supplemental needs or special needs trust that we see here in Florida is often referred to as a first-party trust. And it's a first-party trust because the recipient of the benefits themselves is going to be putting their own funds into a trust to ensure that they either can qualify for benefits or can continue to qualify for benefits. These are trusts most commonly known as like a pooled trust, where if you have assets that are, for example, over the limit for Medicaid, so assets in excess of $2,000, you can transfer those excess assets into a pooled trust so that, again, they can be used for you during your lifetime on all sorts of things, as long as it is a real need of the beneficiary. And then what typically happens in this scenario, and this happens also in another type of trust we see very often in this first party scenario called a Miller Trust, what happens at the end of your lifetime, Medicaid will most likely have a lien in regards to services they provided. They want to get paid back. So in these first party trusts, oftentimes the funds that are left over in the trust after the recipient passes away are going to pay back Medicaid, except for under limited circumstances. With a pool trust, when you have a spouse who then needs Medicaid, whatever's left in your account can be transferred to them. Now, the other type of first-party trust that I mentioned a moment ago is a Miller Trust or a qualified income trust. This is a trust specifically for income that's over the limit. So currently, to qualify for Medicaid, you cannot receive more than $2,829 gross a month from any form of income. So whether it's pension, Social Security income, required minimum distributions from a retirement account, when all of that is combined, if your gross income is greater than $2,829 a month, you're going to be over the income limit for Medicaid. So oftentimes people will transfer this excess income into what's called a qualified income trust or a Miller Trust, again, so that they can either qualify for benefits or continue to qualify for benefits. The money in the Miller Trust is often paid as a copay, especially if you're in nursing care for Medicaid or you end up being in nursing care later in life. And again, these assets that are in that trust, the money that's in that trust, is typically recouped by Medicaid at the end of the individual's life. One important distinction between the qualified income trust and the pool trust is what their uses are. For the qualified income trust, extra money or excess money over the income limit for Medicaid that's put in that trust can only be used to provide supplemental needs of a medical or healthcare nature, whereas a pooled trust is more broad. So often people will choose to use a pooled trust even just for income or income and assets, because you can put both in, but its uses are more broad. But again, the important thing and an important distinction between third party and first party is this requirement to pay Medicaid back. In third party trust, when a third party sets it up for you, like a parent or a grandparent, they can designate a beneficiary after the original recipient passes away. So the recipient who's receiving government benefits, again, like Medicaid or SSI, can use assets in this trust during their lifetime. If there's assets left over, another beneficiary can be named in the third party trust. Whereas the first party trust that is set up by the recipient themselves, most of the time, anything left over in that type of a trust or in an account formed from that trust is going to be going to Medicaid to pay them back for the services they provided during the recipient's lifetime. Okay, I hope this explains a little bit about the types of supplemental or special needs trusts available in Florida. If you have any other questions regarding Florida Medicaid, these types of trusts, or elder law in general, please don't hesitate to reach out to our office or atCAUSE Law Office, the non-stuffy attorneys, and the link is in my bio.